Hey everybody, I am Scott Stanton, the original Tombstone tourist, and today we're in Hollywood Cemetery, not in Hollywood, California, but in the beautiful city, historic Richmond, Virginia. And who do I have with me? Again, I have Bob Olson, tour guide extraordinaire of Hollywood Cemetery. Now, I grew up in California, moved up to Oregon. I was a West Coast guy for a number of decades. I have absolutely no idea about the Civil War or George Pickett. So I had to bring in an expert to tell me everything you need to know about the final resting place of George Pickett and what this represents here in Hollywood Cemetery. Take it away.
Pickett is buried here because of Pickett's charge, one of the famous battles, like the Battle of Gettysburg. And he's buried here because behind us is all of his men, and he said he wanted to be buried with his men. All the Confederates buried at Gettysburg was dug up and brought back here in 1872 and 73. They brought back 2,935 soldiers from Gettysburg.
Wow.
And Pickett would march in with every group. There were 6 shipments, 529 boxes, and he would march in with every group. So Pickett is buried here now, and next to Pickett is his third wife. His first wife died in childbirth in the 1850s in Texas, where he was stationed. Then he went to Oregon. He was stationed in Oregon. He had an Indian wife and child by her, James Pickett, but she died shortly after childbirth. When he was sent back to Virginia, he left his son, James, with the tribe because it wouldn't look good to bring back an Indian child to Virginia.
Back then.
So then, in 1863, he married Sally. But Sally's the problem of Pickett history, because George died in 1875. Sally didn't die until 1931, and she made her living giving speeches about George. She had a tendency to embellish things. So historians have to wade through what's real and what did she add, because this is how she was making her living. That's why on her headstone it says stage name.
Yeah, I saw that. You don't see that too often. Not even on movie stars, you don't see that.
No. So she's the problem of Pickett history. She was originally buried in a mausoleum, but the mausoleum in the 90s was going bankrupt. So in 1998, they moved her and buried her here next to George, because she said she always wanted to be buried next to him because George had a tendency to drink a little bit, and she wanted to watch over him in the afterlife. And so it was a big controversy when she was buried here, because they said, you're burying a woman in the soldiers section? Well, since then, since 98, we found 2 other women that are buried here in the soldiers section. So it's not as bad as it was.
Oh my gosh. So he fled to Canada. What caused that?
During the Civil War, after Gettysburg, he was sent by Lee to New Bern, North Carolina. The Federals held the city. He wanted Pickett to take back the city, but it was almost impossible because the Neuse River comes right up to New Bern, and Union gunboats could just destroy any army. But while he was there, he captured what is known as galvanized Yankees. Now, a galvanized Yankee is a Confederate prisoner who was released from a northern prison if they would fight in the Union Army. But that was only a few. But the majority of the men were just local militia. And so he gathered them all up together and he hung them as traitors. So at the end of the war, Congress tried to prosecute him as a war criminal 3 times. So he fled with his family to Canada. And then after about 3 years, came back to the United States when Grant convinced the Congress to pardon him.
Okay, so you're a lifelong soldier. You're out in the battlefield, you're in your uniform, you've got your swords and your horses and you're killing and all that. So when he came back from Canada, did you just take that up again?
No, he tried a few things and nothing really worked. So when he died in 1875, he was selling insurance in Norfolk.
So your whole life insurance salesman was none other than George Pickett.
Than George Pickett.
That's hilarious. You know what? If you want to take a tour of Hollywood Cemetery, you need to ask for Bob. Bob, how do they get a hold of you to take a tour?
All they have to do is call Hollywood Cemetery, Richmond, Virginia, ask for Bob, they'll put you in touch.
Perfect. Hey there, I am Scott Stanton, the original Tombstone tourist. If you want to know more about George Pickett, Sally Pickett, and the last Confederate soldier to live,
To be buried in Hollywood.
he's right over there. If you want all the information on that, come to my website, thetombstonetourist.com, for videos, interviews, and articles, and all that great stuff. Again, this is Bob Olson. I'm Scott Stanton, the original Tombstone tourist. Our job here is done.